Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. My name is Kevin Harrington. I work in product development R&D for Alcon in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up south of here. My wife is from Atlanta, and I wisely chose to move her back there after 20 years in the Midwest. But I really enjoy coming here and participating. So thanks for being part of it.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, good, Pastor. I'm emeritus professor at St. Thomas in Minnesota. And I've been coming to IBECC for a lot of years, almost 20. And it's a lovely opportunity for me to participate. I teach business ethics.
How about our online judges? Can you all introduce yourselves?
I'm Leon Goldman. I'm a retired Chief Compliance and Privacy Officer from an academic medical center in Boston. Prior to that, I'm Associate Professor of Surgery at Harvard Medical School, and I'm a Emeritus Advisory Board member for the Hoffman Center for Business Ethics at Bentley University.
I'll go next. My name is Stephen Smart. I'm Associate General Counsel for Compliance with a company called Enerflex, which is a provider of equipment and services to the oil and gas industry. I'm based in Houston, Texas. That's where I'm calling from now. This is my first time participating in IBECC, so I'm really glad to be with you today and looking forward to the presentation.
And I will also introduce myself. My name is Irina Demyanova. I'm based in Poland. I'm participating already for the 5th year, I think. It's a great pleasure every time. Currently, I'm working as a director for anti-bribery and corruption in investment bank and Standard Chartered. And I'm responsible for US, LATAM, and Europe. And my background is around ethics, risk, compliance, and law across FMCG sector and pharmaceuticals. Very nice to be here today.
Real good.
Should we introduce ourselves, I suppose? I am Jonathan Bruce King. I am a second-year MBA student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I come from actually the theater fundraising world and raising money for Broadway. And I'm headed to go work for a large multinational working in AI, specifically within their insurance division.
Very good.
My name is Bruna. I'm from Brazil, and I'm also a second-year MBA at Eisenberg at UMass. And before doing the MBA, I worked a lot with education and business development for companies in Europe. I have been living in Europe for the past 5-7 years, for a long time in the UK, and I'm heading back to Europe after the MBA.
I'm Kavya. I'm also a second-year MBA student. I specialize in business analytics at UMass. And before joining the MBA program, I actually worked as a data scientist. So AI, kind of dabbled here and there in AI. And yeah, I'm from the UK, but I also worked in India for a bit.
Very good. Okay. So let me read the format, how we'll do things today. Hopefully none of this is new. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity. Assigning a fictional business identity to the 5 of us, the judges. Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You'll have 25 minutes with a 5-minute question to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem. To recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, teams will be uninterrupted. When you're finished, the judges will ask you questions for 20 minutes. During the Q&A, both you and judges will stay in character throughout. After the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside of the role-playing exercise. Some important things to keep in mind. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion, using technical, philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a major mistake. Similarly, any member of the team reading his or her part will also be considered a weakness, although you may use notes. During this presentation, every member of the team may have or must have some sort of speaking role. Any questions?
Your role, by the way, is the executives of 247.ai, and we are a consulting company working with y'all.
Very good. Okay, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and start. Okay,
So good afternoon. We're very happy to be here with you to talk a little bit more business process outsourcing here at 247.ai. So we are from KAPP Consulting. I am Bruna, and this is my colleague, Jonathan Bruce King, and this is my colleague, Kavya Parthiban. We're going to talk about AI, which seems like something that we have been talking a lot in the past 2 years because of ChatGPT and a lot of innovations that disrupted a lot of our lives in the past few years. But AI, robotics, and creating robots and intelligence that's artificial is not something that was created in the past 10 years. The humans have been dwelling with this topic and dreaming and experimenting with stories like that since the early days. Pandora, the famous automata who opened the box, was arguably the first AI, the first robotic AI, artificial intelligence created, and she unleashed all the bad things and horrible things into humanity. Also, the city of Cologne in Germany has this funny story about elves that would work in the city doing everyone's work. And the only thing they asked for was that nobody had the curiosity to go look for them. And then someone went there, looked for them, and then humans had to do their work. So nowadays, myths like that, machines, artificial intelligence, other beings doing our work for us is something that is possible due to digital computing and machine learning. But we want to think about the future of AI. Where are we today? AI today has narrow capabilities, and we have machine learning, which can execute very specific tasks. And sometimes it can outperform humans. For instance, you have self-driving cars who can drive better than a lot of people. You also have some AI that can read exams or rate exams from people faster or sometimes even better than humans. In 2040, we think we are going to be in the age of AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence. And by this time, we expect that AI will have general capabilities. What does that mean? A stronger, more robust AI, also machine learning, and it will be able to perform broader tests. It will be able to reason and improve a lot of things. So maybe it will be able to convince us that it's human. You'll be talking to a chatbot and it will be possible that it will come into, I am human. And sometimes, maybe, I don't know, we'll have AIs getting university degrees, who knows? And what is going to happen after AGI? We predict that this could be the time when AI will be transcending those capabilities. What does that mean? A stronger AI and machine consciousness. So it will gain consciousness and might develop some intelligence that's beyond human capabilities, which can be very dangerous, or it can be really good, can outperform humans in stuff that we don't want to do. But we need to be very careful about how we're going to be doing and dealing with this.
So now we've learned a little bit more about what we expect AI to do in 2040 and post forward. We want to talk about who is 247.ai and where do we see AI coming into the organization. Now, 247.ai has been using AI and ML technologies for the last 24 years in providing targeted customer experiences. You are an automation and you are targeting every single channel, which means there is an omni-channel solutions. We are targeting our customers, both on web services, on every tablet devices. Everyone's walking around with a smartwatch today. 24/7 is providing them solutions even on their watch and also on interactive voice agents. there is a global presence. 247.ai has clients and customers across the globe. Even though your headquarters is based in San Jose, California, there are offices in Toronto, London, Sydney, and newly opened BPO services in India, Philippines, and Guatemala and Colombia recently to cater to our Spanish-speaking clients. Now, the reason we want to bring AI to the BPO service in 247.ai is because you are a company that is known for being a forefront runner in driving data-driven analytics and providing insights to not only the workforce, but also all of the clients. Now, we've spoken about 247.ai in a high level and how AI is going to implement or be of an impact to 24/7, even though AI is in your names. Now, we want to talk about the frontline workers, the workers that are actually bringing in the money for the organization. And we want you to talk about Anita. Anita has been with 24/7 for the last 3 years. Now, she's been working 3 different shifts because she's working with 3 different clients, which means her work-life balance isn't the best. In a month, she has 3 different shifts, mornings, evenings, and nights. And in each of these 8-hour shifts, she answers around 50 calls. Now, these 50 calls, interestingly, can be broken down into simple 5 or 6 questions, which are very mundane. So she's pretty much repeating herself every single day. And because there's no quotient of emotional or, a personal intelligence or a human intelligence that's in her job, there's not a lot of job satisfaction. However, Anita, we found, is only with the company because she's the sole breadwinner for her family.
So I think that brings us to the current state of BPO and AI. Right now, the global market size for BPO is $280 billion. We expect that has, by the way, been an astounding amount of growth over the last 10 to 15 years, seeing like 10% annual growth rate. We expect that's going to cool off to around 5 or so for the industry. But when you combine that with AI in 2020 was a $100 million industry. It is expected is now a $2 trillion industry and will continue to grow. We believe that it's going to grow over about 20-fold over the next 20 years. AI in BPO is very useful. It can do a lot of useful things. An LLM, so that we all have the same language, a large language model is a model that is trained on an immense amount of data, text usually, and it uses advanced probability to be able to give you the most likely answer to a given query. So you want to know, why is the sky blue? It does not know why the sky is blue, but it can tell you with reasonable certainty why the sky is blue based on other answers that answer the same question. So it synthesizes that data. Also, very useful, machine learning data analytics, using a large data set and being able to see things that otherwise really we couldn't see connections, correlations that otherwise be pretty hard as a human being to find. Also, automation, robots in factories, but automation within business processes, moving claims along within an insurance company, moving automatic deposits or automatic ETFs, automatic fund transfers, EFTs. Those are useful parts of a part of AI. It's all of these are categorized under that. A lot of people think AI is just it's LLMs. Well, it's much more than that. But also AI assisted work, using those LLMs within your business process. Someone who's in a chat customer service specialist might have LLMs give them an opportunity to be able to quickly select the correct response, which saves them in typing time, saves them from having to actually type out an answer unless absolutely necessary. So practical applications, that's one of them. But also, within customer service, you can actually, for most companies these days, you find that actually a lot of their customer service is based around an AI through it analyzes what you input into it, either it's a touch tone or it's speaking. And that helps speed along easy to answer questions. Also, automated fraud prevention, huge part of that. Fraud prevention is key, and it means that it can look for anomalies in that large data set very quickly and flag things for auditors within a company. Also, you can use AI to do things like create an API. An API is a bridge software between 2 different softwares that enables things to speak to each other. Using an AI, you can actually create an API much faster and cheaper than using another company or building it yourself. And that can actually help you in moving processes along, but also in being able to communicate with your clients, which helps. Finally, automated claims for, for insurance in particular. Moving along that insurance claims process is absolutely essential. It keeps things moving, and of course also means that faster payouts and less employee time means that you're actually capturing more revenue overall, because you're not having to put out for employee time in addition to the cost of the policy and the cost of the claim. So that, AI really does lead to a lot of enhanced efficiency and some really major cost savings. When you streamline those tasks and workflows, saves money. It also reduces the amount of manual intervention, because you're going from one data set to another and it's moving across, instead of having to do, as like my first job when I worked in an office in high school, was literally copying and pasting Excel data from one sheet to another. That still existed not that long ago, and still exists across the board in some places. It also minimizes errors, so you don't paste it into the wrong cell. That AI is actually very much more accurate than a human being. And finally, it also means that in real time, you're monitoring the accuracy of that data, and also in real time making better decisions. That leads to cost savings, a 30% reduction in processing time. You also see a 20% reduction in error rates, and that leads to about $500,000 in fixed cost savings, especially around labor, which is a major savings.
And when we're talking about client interactions, it will also have enormous impact. We predict that this can have a 15% increased customer retention because of the use of personalized AI-driven recommendations. We also estimate that we're going to reduce the response time in 50% with the use of chatbots, and reducing the time you respond to a claim or a question or anything that a customer needs leads to higher satisfaction. People are happier with your work. And we also estimate a 20% market reach and revenue growth expansion. Why do we do that? Why do we think about that? Because the moment you have AI helping your global company do things like create marketing campaigns and automate the description of products and everything, this will be easier with speedy translations that you can do using those AI softwares.
So we also would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the legal implications that face this. Data protection and privacy laws are enormous. I know you already deal with this in California, which has probably one of the strongest data privacy standards in the United States. But of course, GDPR, because we all have to deal with it. We work with you work with companies in Europe. You need to make sure that the data is being handled in a way that is in line with those laws, and also kind of keeps an eye on that regulatory curve and keeps ahead of it. Intellectual property rights are huge and a problem. LLMs have been trained on data that is not publicly available, and we'll have to see what happens with that case as it works its way through the U.S. Supreme Court system. But that could also have an impact on how we train the LLM. And does that impact us? Probably not, but it's something to keep in mind. Employment law, if these lead to layoffs, there are notices for layoffs to many governments, and that's an important thing to keep in mind. Also, liability issues. If we're working with some of our medical clients and we're giving either medical advice, or if we're working with a financial client, we're giving financial information, those can open us up to a lot of scrutiny, but also we have to make sure that those are correct. Giving the wrong answer, especially in a medical setting, could be a major liability. Compliance and also auditability. While AI allows us to almost in real time look at issues within our data, within our company, you also have to be able to be audited, and that data needs to be stored well and kept secure. Ooh, there we go. So data protection. Like data protection, we think that there are a few things to do. First of all, you're already doing a lot of this, especially for other units. It's making sure that you identify across the board the countries that we work in, and how those, and identify the relevant issues and standards we need to be practicing within each jurisdiction. That means creating an action plan and also implementing training for our workforce. Training has to happen. It is something we already do a lot of, but we do believe that if you're incorporating AI, especially with your customer-facing work, you need to include training in proper use, and that will increase some of your costs. Also, strong fences around that data. We have to make sure that if I log in to talk about my bank account, that I can't somehow trick the AI into giving me information about another user's bank account. It's all coming from the same database. That is entirely possible. So you need fences around that. Good fences make good neighbors. Intellectual property rights, like you need to decide if we recommend training an LLM within house. If we are moving down this road, an LLM within house is not that expensive, but we do believe that clean data is most useful, making sure that it's either publicly available or company proprietary data or client proprietary data. That means also we need to be aware of where that data goes. We need to monitor those inputs and outputs continuously because we really can't have error. Liability, we need to ensure accuracy. It's watch and implement very quickly. And then that also means monitoring the regulatory field because we do believe that there are some changes that are going to be coming down that will increase the regulatory burden in this area. Compliance and auditability, again, data clarity, make sure it is auditable and also traceable.
Now, while there are a lot of legal issues, we think 24/7.ai should also be very wary of the legal complications and challenges that come with this AI integration. Now, we have found that these are the major 5 complications that you should be aware about. Number 1 is the AI bias. We want to make sure that our models and the AI is not biasing or talking to all of our customers in one particular way and causing, because what goes in the model is how clever those models are going to be. So how do we make sure that we're feeding our models with the right data to make sure that we're getting the right inputs? It's also making sure that we're providing real AI. We're not just having a bunch of agents working in the background, acting as if they are providing automated solutions. We don't want to be in the news like Amazon was earlier in the year, where they used agents to actually sit behind a CCTV camera and tally what clients and customers were buying, calling it an automated shopping experience. What this means is giving adequate training for all LLM. Now, this means we're not just training our models, but we're also training every single employee that comes in contact with AI. We want them to know how to use it and also how to use the output that's coming. It means data security. Who are the employees or who are the customers or clients that have access into viewing the training and testing data for these models? Who is looking at the output to make sure that our models are giving everything within compliance? Also, does this mean that there's going to be a loss of human jobs? Now, while the workforce and our frontline workers are going to be concerned that the introduction of AI or the introduction of automation is going to axe their jobs, we want to give them, security and confidence that they are in our organization for the betterment of all. Now, in 2018, ML and AI did replace 40% of outsourcing. But what we predict in 2024, with the introduction of AI into our BPO services, is that we don't want to displace our workforce, but we want to be there in the advancement of their careers. We want to train our workforce so we are aiding in the increase in accuracy and correctness of our data and our interactions. And we predict that the training of our employees is only going to be $1,250 per person, right? Now, on the grand scheme of things, this value is a mere penny. Now, with this, we expect our BPO to have a growth rate of nearly 5% just from the integration of AI. Now, we have a lot of ethical issues, we know, but we think 24/7.ai should act with these 3 key principles going forward and approaching every single problem. Now, we want you to be transparent. Not transparent just with your workforce to give them full disclosure on what is happening with the company and where you see it moving forward, but also being transparent with the customers. Now, when a customer is talking to an agent or a chatbot that is licensed by 24/7.ai, the customer should know that they are talking to an AI and not an actual human. They should be given options to either escalate depending on the severity of their problems. Also, fairness. Now, we've spoken multiple times that this is going to bring in revenue generation, but we want to be fair to every single employee, especially our frontline workers, and give everyone a piece of the pie. It also means keeping all of the employees and senior leadership accountable. Everyone who looks at the data should be held accountable because they are looking at confidential customer information.
Yeah, and talking about revenue generation and the fiscal upside for our clients, is important to say that we expect to have at least a 15% of revenue growth per transaction, which would mean at least $500,000 in savings. And would also mean a 50% faster time, not only to bring products to market, but also in the ordering process. This means if you are a designer and you need to build a prototype of a project, with the use of AI, you can do this with 50% less time, you can do it faster. And also for instance, in an ordering process, you use AI to already print the tags of products you're gonna be shipping. The moment an order is done, you can print it, the AI will tell your printer to print it, and then you have it ready there, and you will lose less time in this type of processes.
So, again, we have some challenges. We just want to keep going back to this, that, look, the regulatory and, ethical compliance is really important. It's maintaining that, that ethical standard so that we are consistent across the company, and making sure that those are adopted and followed is important. We believe that, by being open, by being fair, and by being accountable, that's actually how we can roll out AI within the BPO services and, use it to save your customers money and ultimately, increase your bottom line. It is essential to develop that, but we also have change management. There are going to be workforce changes coming. This will necessitate different ways of working with people. We hope that what this means is instead of employees working multiple different shifts because they're working for different clients at different hours of the day, that you can streamline the amount of people because you need fewer employees. Your labor is more known. You know the exact amount of people, so that means you can standardize. They're working graveyard shift. That's just what they do. They work the 8 to 5. They work, they actually have direct roles. Consistency is key in retaining employees. But that means that you need to manage this ahead of time. That means you need to have change management. It means you need to start getting ahead of training before you're rolling out the AI, instead of developing an AI and then dumping it on your workforce and then having fire people. Instead, you've already trained them. Finally, cost, we believe, is an issue. LLM costs $2 to $3 million. We think it's around 3. It could also go north of that, depending on the demands, especially for different clients. And that leads to a problem, because this could be ailerons versus wing warping. For those of you who are not aviation geeks like myself, wing warping was how planes turned under the Wright brothers. Ailerons were made by Curtiss. They were actually the technology that won out, but it took 15 years or so. There were planes with wing warping until the late 20s. So it's interesting to think about, could we be betting on the wrong horse? So we need to make sure that there's enough cash held in reserve, that you don't go all in too quickly, and that you're reserving enough cash so that you could pivot should that be a desire.
Now, we don't just want to give a model that is going to let 24/7.ai ride this wave of AI, but we want to build and foster a culture of continuous improvement. And what we want to do is, we've identified the opportunity for AI in the BPO service, but we want to continue identifying every single opportunity or need. And when we have this opportunity, we want to be able to create actionable projects under the guiding 3 principles that we've spoken about. Now, we want to ensure that 24/7.ai is staying ahead of the regulatory curve. And by using these 3 principles, we are sure that they can address every ethical challenge that they may face. We will then talk about deciding and implementing the best course of action for each of these opportunities that we identify, then evaluate the predicted outcome versus what was our actual outcome. Now, things aren't always going to go our way, so we're going to review and adapt the way we learn. Now, we've spoken about this on a very high level in terms of, hey, how much money is this going to generate for us? What are our legal issues? What are our ethical issues? But what does it actually mean for Anita, who we spoke about earlier on? Now, Anita is now going to be able to just work a single shift, because she's not going to be having to dabble in different projects with different clients, but is going to be able to focus on one particular project. She's going to be able to answer all of these repeat mundane customer queries in 5 to 10 seconds with the onset of automation that AI is going to provide. And before she was answering only 50 calls, now she's going to be able to answer 100, where she's only catering to those complex customer queries, and she's going to be able to have and form a real connection with the people she's helping. Now she's going to be able to go home with the satisfaction of knowing she's helped 100 people across the globe tackle their issues. And what does that mean for her family? Her kids are going to see Anita before tea time and bedtime. Now, future of 24/7.ai. AI is in your name, and we want AI to be an integral part of your BPO unit as well. It means increased meaning of outsourcing work, and using the continuous model of improvement, we're going to monitor the use of AI to make sure that we are not, going above our costs and making sure everything is working in-house in the way it's supposed to. There's going to be constant training in data security and compliance, which means it's not just the betterment of the organization, but betterment of each and every single one of our employees. And we hope that with this, 24/7.ai is going to be in the news and be, at the forefront of this AI wave and continue to ride the multiple waves that are to come. Thank you.
Very good. My first question. What makes the issue you're discussing an ethical issue?
Well, if I might take that, any new technology it is a business issue. It is a strategic issue. It touches so many different things, and it is an ethical issue because of the impact on workers, but also the impact on the consumer. There's a fiscal upside, but there's also there is the possibility that 24/7.ai is doing quite a lot of good right now, but there are many companies that are not doing good. That you see the pitfalls of it, of poorly implemented AI, where you tell your shareholders that you're running a cashierless store in Manhattan, and it's really just CCTVs straight to India. And that was AI? No, that's not AI. That's a problem. That's an unethical use of AI. And we think that this is an AI issue specifically because it impacts the worker experience, and therefore there are ethical concerns around any time we have something that impacts, much like, the use of subprime auto lending, subprime auto loans. That's an ethical issue, even though it's a whole industry. But there are ethical concerns within that, and I think that's what we're trying to highlight are the ethical concerns around the use of AI.
I'm worried about Anita. She's bored with. How many did she do?
50
She did 50 to start with.
Yeah. I don't know why she's not going to be even more bored with 100.
Right. So that's what we wanted to highlight, in the sense that, before, as a customer, you might just call, let's pick an industry, say like a hotel industry or like the hospitality. Now, any customer who maybe their door doesn't unlock, they're going to call Anita and be like, hey, I'm staying at the Hilton, I'm room 101, my door doesn't unlock. And someone similar who's staying at the Sheraton is also going to be calling. So they're pretty much the same queries that Anita is going to be talking to. And because it's the same, she's going to be very bored, like you said, and she's going to mess up and there's going to be room for error. But with automation and AI, what it's going to be able to do is it's going to be identify the intent of the caller, and it's going to say, hey, you might want to turn your key card around, and it works. So something very small like that, the AI could identify the intent and just say, this is the answer. And Anita doesn't even need to take that call. Right. So that's where her improvement in her day-to-day is coming. And when she actually has a caller, they're going to be dealing with complex queries. So every call she takes is going to be different. So there's that element of problem solving that she is now going to have in her job, which she did not have before.
She would be monitoring most of those calls to make sure that the query was actually met, which is where the 100 number comes from.
If I may, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a very good presentation, and I thank you. But with Anita showing up, I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Are we only talking about customer service phone calls as a business process outsource? Or are you talking about a larger body that 24/7 AI handles other business processes?
Yes.
That's the first question. The second question is, you talked about the ethics in terms of the employees. What are the ethical issues for the end user if I'm calling and believe it's supposed to be a human being? I mean, I know today when I call and get a chatbot, I want to strangle it. What would be the way of ethically telling people, look, one, this is AI. Two, this is how to get help if you're getting frustrated.
I can take the second part of that question. In terms of transparency, that's what we wanted to say, in terms of we want to be transparent with our employees and what AI is going to do, but also transparent with our customers and our clients. And I'm sorry if I didn't properly mention that. So every time that you log on to a client's website and they use a chatbot, at the bottom, currently it says that it's powered by 247.ai. Now, with the integration of AI into the BPO service, there would be an additional line which says you are talking to an AI-powered chatbot. Now, you will have an option based on your intent discovery and the type of problem you're solving with. You will always have an option to escalate to a human agent. And by clicking on that button, depending on your severity, you will get access to talk to people like Anita, and she will be able to help you. So that's what we wanted to talk about, having these three guiding principles, and transparency is number one. In terms of AI integration in BPO services, 247.ai already uses AI and ML, which is what we spoke about right at the beginning. Sorry about that. They use AI customer engagement. So they are already using ML technologies for their chatbots. So we want to talk specifically about integrating into the agents and more so the interactive core side of BPO services.
But we do want to highlight, because it is a question of the larger industry and also everything else the company does. There are automated processes that are provided to financial services, to insurance companies, that we just wanted to make sure that we highlight, because those also touch other parts of the business. If you're providing a chatbot service or even just a BPO customer service department for an insurance company, if you're moving towards an AI assisted model, that has some pretty significant concerns that we tried to highlight.
Another question from our online judges.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. So I was wondering about your thoughts on the following. At some point in the presentation, you mentioned that colleagues who are currently hired in our company would not lose the job because they might be trained to perform a different function as part of the organization, because the amount of time which can be saved based on the data which you provided is indeed significant, and it will free up a significant amount of our headcounts. But how did you think about the ambition and the skill set which currently those employees have? So if they were hired to our organization as individuals for the customer service support, and now it will be a huge amount of data and AI-driven company, which would require data analysis and data analytics skills, which they might not have and not even have an ambition to have. Have you calculated it into the potential cost of the displacement of those employees, and how you are looking at this ethical aspect of us expecting from our employees to basically have a requalification to the area which they are totally unskilled in, or maybe not even willing to get on? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great point. It's why so most of our a lot of our BPO clients are, your BPO clients are retail spaces also is a big part of this. But anything customer facing is often part of that. We don't want to bring people in to have to learn about data and data management. It's more like response monitoring. Like Anita would be looking at a live chat between a chatbot and a person, and they're asking a question. And essentially bringing her in as a tester or as a monitor, I think that's still within that customer service mindset to kind of understand, was this a good response or not? It helps us train, but also helps us quickly flag an issue. Around cost, we actually think that it would bring in about $166 million, something like that. Looking at a 15% increase in revenue just from implementing this, freeing up a bunch of cash, we see that an LLM development is about 3 million. Training is expensive. It's $12.5 million in addition to what we're already doing. That will impact things. It puts us at a net negative of, 15.5 million. But we believe that the increased revenue, conservative revenue increase of about 15%, we're looking at about $165 million. And then also the labor savings factoring into that, so about $166 million increased business. So we also believe that there is some possibility that instead of having people working doubles, maybe you look at salarying people for about what they're making right now, and as a way to actually kind of keep peace within the workforce. It doesn't mean that we're going to be hiring a ton of people. I think it means that our labor force stays about the same, maybe grows a little bit in terms of bringing in some machine learning engineers if we don't already, instead of moving them from other projects. But thank you.
Thank you for your response.
I have a question. One of the ethical issues you mentioned is the risk that we might be misappropriating data that doesn't belong to us, as we train the language learning model, the LLM, or perhaps just data from unknown internet sources that might be completely inaccurate, so that would produce misleading results. And you said that the solution to that is to train the LLM using clean data. In other words, data that's from internal sources or that's been verified in some way, if I understood correctly. So my question. That is correct. Okay, good. So my question as an executive of this company is do we have enough of that data? Is that a realistic proposal? Can we do this internally? And if not, what alternatives might be available to still accomplish the goal?
So we have 8,500 agents who are per shift answering about 50 calls. So that's a very large number, talking about per shift per day, right? So 24/7's been in the business for 24 years. So we have a large data corpus of 24 years. So we have millions of data which can be fed. And another thing that we do want to talk about is using industry-specific knowledge. Now, using LLMs, what it does, and like the example we spoke about was like, why is the sky blue? Now, LLMs have the ability to learn from similar questions. Now, we target multiple different industries. So in the hospitality industry or in the retail industry, what we will do is, in terms of cleaning the data, means taking out all of the confidential information, but like teaching our models and training our models on the industry specific data. So we're not just going to be training it for one specific client, but a group of clients which have similar questions and similar answers. And because we've been in the business for 24 years, I don't think data is our number one issue here.
Well, assuming that we've kept track of that data and that it's not too repetitive. I mean, you also mentioned that the questions that people are being asked are extremely repetitive. But actually, the way you're describing it, it sounds like a huge project to me. To gather all of this data, to clean it, to verify it. How much time is that going to take, and what is that going to cost?
2 to 3 years, $3 million.
Okay. Well, I see you have that on your.
But that is actually like that. The cost of an LLM has gone down from it's dropped steadily. We would probably suggest working with, you bringing in a somewhat trained basic LLM and then training it further. Instead of designing it from the ground up, that's how you get to that $3 million number. If you were to do your own, it'd be a lot more than that. But, fully from the ground up, but don't reinvent the wheel. AI companies are all over the place right now.
Sure. Yes, the basic technology would come from the outside source, of course.
Yeah.
Are other companies doing it this way, developing their LLMs internally?
Yes. I can speak to some of our. Other BPOs are actually doing very much the same thing, and a lot of the outsourcing companies within the US, they're already rolling out AIs that you see and you see it in clients like Amtrak or Amazon, where Amazon's doing it in-house. They're doing a very good job at it. They do work with some contractors, but they're doing a pretty good job.
I'm pretty sure like you've picked up the phone to call any customer service and it's like, if you want this, type 1, if you want this. And it sounds like you're talking to a real person until you actually ask the question. So I'm pretty sure that you face this on a day-to-day basis. So that kind of just shows that, you know, this is where BPO services are headed and you just want to stay above.
Yeah, no doubt, but I'm just really asking if how the companies developed their LLMs, whether they did it using internal data as you're proposing. I'm sure Amazon and Google can do it. I'm just not sure that 24/7 AI is big enough to be able to do it.
Also, there's an Indian multinational, Infosys. They actually developed an in-house AI. It's based on the framework of ChatGPT, and they got actually early access. They were part of one of the big funders for it early on with Microsoft. They're a big company, but they're not Amazon. And they've developed that in-house, but then what they've done is that's also then a source of revenue because then they license that to client companies. Travelers, for instance, uses it in-house. They use their own, and then it's trained on travelers' data that is kept internally within the company, for instance. So that's kind of the model we see here. There might be some revenue upside from being able to license back, but we didn't want to project that because that market's a little murky.
Great, thanks.
Stephen, this for you.
And I just got curious, can you just explain to me on this 3 million? Because as you were speaking, I thought maybe there will be some continuous cost involved as well after we implement it. Did you calculate it in? Because thinking of P&L for the future years, I just wanted to make sure that we are not facing any continuous spend which is not taken into consideration within this 3 million, what it may relate to.
Oh, yeah. So these are considered to be annual costs, by the way. So we do think that training will continue to be an annual cost. It'll just have to be something that gets done. And we also think that as part of like LLM development, that includes some more salaries. It includes a higher fixed cost. We think that it'll probably, like that 3 million will probably go down over the next 5 years, but it could be 3 million year over year for a little while. We don't think it's that high, but there is a world where as an annual cost, like you see this being kind of the rubric of like bringing on a lot of extra cost, but bringing a lot more revenue just in terms of increased efficiency. But I don't have year-to-year specifics on that, and that is a very good point. We can bring that back to you.
Thank you.
Stephen, is there a question? Do you have a question?
No, I don't have an additional question right now. Thank you.
Okay. How about Leon, our other online judge? Thanks.
I have no other questions right now.
Okay.
I think I have one other question. Do we have time?
Yes.
In your discussion of transparency, if I heard you correctly, you suggested that the use of AI would be explicitly told to the client. And if the client chose to talk to a human being, they could make that choice. My experience with phone trees is not like that.
Sure.
So is there some protection that the company has that choice for a human being won't be the default choice?
Now, that's where the intent identification and the severity of the problem comes into picture. So, you know, if it's a less severe call, there would be a longer wait time, and they would then be like, you know, given the option of like, hey, do you want to try talking or getting an automated response in the next 30 seconds? And now as a human, when you're like, oh, do I want to wait 5 minutes, or can I see if I get an answer in 30 seconds? You're likely to check getting the answer in 30 seconds. And so in that, like, when you're funneling these people down, and if you're able to get your answer in 30 seconds, then you're going to drop off the call. So in terms of, you know, making sure people aren't just like, everyone's not clicking on it, that's kind of how we see it working.
Well, and also like we want to make sure that easy to answer questions are answered efficiently. I think we probably look to something like Amtrak's Julie for inspiration. In that experience, when you call Amtrak, if you want to speak to an agent, you can. But Julie will ask you, are you calling about a reservation? They try to make sure that you're being routed through the correct decision tree, which enables there to be an opportunity. Like if you're calling about train status, you really shouldn't speak to a real person. That's a bad use of time, essentially. You know, it's looking at a train schedule is a little silly. There are many ways to do it, and it also should be accessible. So Julie is actually it's actually an LLM where it can fully respond to a more complex, instead of like press 1, it's like a full spoken response. And so we see though a place where, like, if you said representative, it would say, we can connect you to a representative. Can you please give us, give us an idea of what we're talking about? What do we need to be talking about? And then that would route you into a decision tree that would still allow you to get to a representative, but would also try to whittle down what steps you're going through to try to push anything that could be not just immediately escalated if you're calling with a relatively simple problem. That there might be a way to do that. And I think, as Kavya is saying, like in the text or like within that, say you can speak to a representative in 5 minutes with a callback, or you can use our automated agent, press 1 to use our automated callback service for an agent. So then that way we make our customers both feel cared for, but also can meter out how often they're calling in.
Really good. Let's pause the simulation, okay? And let's discuss feedback. Folks online, what feedback do you have for the team?
So my feedback is one I always end up giving. Your presentation was very good. It really covered a lot. In fact, it's an extremely broad subject, and that's part of the problem. There are 2 things that I think are useful to do. One is tell me why I care right off the bat. So tell me what you're going to tell me and why it matters to me in a short 2 sentences. So to summarize your whole presentation in 2 sentences, and then go into the longer presentation. The other is tell me the limitations. So we're going to talk about AI as it relates to customer service. It is a much broader issue that covers much more, but most of what we'll cover today is how it affects customer service and your employees and your users. And then I think you can go into the rest of it. But for me, in the beginning, I sort of started to get confused and lost in the sea of information. And it's very helpful to your audience to say, this is what it's about. This is why you care. Now let's tell you the details. Because you did a lot of that in the questions. When we got to the questions, you were quite focused and clarified quite a bit. So thank you. Good presentation all in all.
I may continue the feedback. So first of all, thank you so much. It was very interesting to hear you speaking. You really touched on the topic of my passion, by the way, because I love AI. I'm very interested and passionate about that, especially on ethics and AI. So you had high energy, which I loved a lot all throughout the presentation and answering the questions. You felt very, I felt you were very confident, which is great. Similarly to the previous feedback, I wanted to pay attention to the fact that at the very beginning, I was slightly lost because I couldn't understand what problematic we are trying to address, like what is the task which we as executives have tasked you with and what you are looking to solve for us. So I think that could be, presented a little bit in a more clearer way, like bottom line upfront style, I liked very much your structure, so it really felt very clear to me how you put the challenges first and the mitigation plan just after for each of the dimensions. It was really good. One thing which I would maybe think of for the future, since it was like the focus should have been with ethics, I would dedicate slightly more time to the ethics dimension, to be honest, especially that there were a number of the really interesting challenges which you might have a little bit elaborated on. And after this ethics part, I wasn't very sure that I understood what was the biggest ethics related challenge there. And definitely some would have bigger weight than others. But you have addressed all of those, which I'm also, familiar with, and what industries are talking about. So, which is really great, very comprehensive. And just, maybe one thing on the investment side. I mean, there were numbers, and they were very specific, and you were talking very confidently about those numbers. What I was slightly missing is so you showed us cost, you showed us savings, but I didn't see basically the correlation in the time frame on how fast we will achieve the savings and how this all works together. In a way, I couldn't really kind of connect those numbers between them, although they were very convincing. So there was probably a lot of research done behind that. But yeah, I didn't see that specific time projection when the savings will start to come versus the investment, and how long it will take us to invest in order to really get those profits in such an increased numbers as you suggested. But overall, really loved your presentation. Interesting topic, like a really broad one. I agree with the previous speaker. It's a very broad topic. So it's not only about this customer service. I'm sure the companies would be looking into many different ways, although this one is the most obvious. And yeah, thank you for covering this in a very comprehensive way.
Let me add my comments then. I also really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much, and very much agree with Irina's observations that you were very engaged, high energy, made it interesting, kept my attention, all very positive. I think that the way you dealt with the ethical issues was good, and you set out several different issues. Would have been interested to hear more about some of those issues, but it came out more in the questions as well. And you identified the principles of transparency, fairness, and accountability as the approach to handling the ethical issues. And I liked that part of the presentation very much. I think that that's a good way to think about it. And it seems to me that that is those are applicable principles, and that's the way that people would think about it in business. I also agree with what's been said previously about the beginning of the presentation. Although I enjoyed it very much to hear about Pandora and the myth of Cologne and so on, I don't really think that that would be the best way to start a presentation to an executive committee or a board of directors. But rather you would instead go directly to, okay, here's the problem that we believe you're facing, and here's our proposed solution at a high level, and then go into the details, exactly as Leon described. Yeah. Yeah, I think that on the whole, I just really, especially when I asked the question about the training the LLM in-house, I thought you had really good responses to my question, and it showed that you really have you've investigated this and you have examples of what other companies are doing. I find often that this is what executives seem to want to know. What are other companies doing? They always want benchmark data, right? And they want to know what other people are doing. So that's why I asked that question. Thank you.
Well, I liked Anita. And the reason I liked Anita was that she humanized the presentation. The ethical dimension of this topic needs humanization. It needs it for the recipient of this presentation to really get it. They need to be able to put themselves into it. And I can put myself into Anita. And I think it's possible that the presentation could benefit from a couple more Anitas, in the sense of a client or someone who's going to get, as you call it, upskilled. an employee who's going to get upskilled, just to humanize it a little more. It wouldn't have the same name as Anita, but it would be another employee. And it just adds, it makes the ethical dimension more concrete. And, but tomorrow you're going to be doing the 10-minute thing. And I'm thinking of that through your eyes. And as you approach the 10-minute thing, I think it's in your interest to bring Anita along.
I'll say, I've been, like Ken and I have had the privilege to be part of this for several years. This is, there are several things about what you did, which I thought were amongst the very best. I do want to mention one thing. Arena is 7 hours ahead of us. It's almost 11 o'clock.
Oh,
Yeah. Thank you for staying with us and being part of the group and supporting this effort. I really appreciate it. Couple of things. I give presentations frequently, and you do a number of things exceptionally well. First of all, presenting in the format you are with your slides behind you to an audience you do not know, I could not imagine a more difficult scenario. And I thought you were outstanding. The other is at least two of, well, I work with a colleague from Brazil, he's from Porto Alegre. And
That's where I'm from.
been there 3 times. And neither of you has the accent like my colleagues, my former colleagues here. But I thought you did a phenomenal job of being very comfortable in front of us, using body language, using facial expression, using hand expressions. Well done. Really, really good. That was exceptional. I do have one small minor caution: avoid acronyms. Corporate America is loaded with acronyms, and unfortunately, there are often acronyms that people will know from past life. Okay, so API to me is active pharmaceutical ingredient.
Funny.
Okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, so avoid acronyms.
Yeah.
I love one of the pieces of feedback that Ken and the other gentleman shared with us. It is challenging. It is very challenging in the short formats. Okay, know what point you want to make. Know your audience. Why do I care? Okay, and don't be wowed by the technology, because technology offers a lot of reasons to be wowed. My son works in AI, and I figured it out myself. Also, your audience has seen a variety of new technologies as they come along over time as a function of, whether it's the internet, whether it's globalization. Okay, so this to us is another wave of the latest in the evolution of technology and so forth. The question I think about during your discussion, I just was really compelled by a book I was reading on the way up here. There are winners in AI and there are losers. Okay, think about who those are and who, and then lastly, my suggestion is focus keenly on the ethical issues in that context. Specifically, again, as the gentleman mentioned online, why do I care? And then who are the winners and who are the losers? Okay, and why is that a compelling consideration? Obviously, the internet's a great example. Just in terms of security issues and other privacy issues, what is unique and novel about AI in contrast with those other recent rounds of new technology and evolution in our working lives and our personal lives? Keep doing everything you're doing the way you present. You guys are rock stars that way. And I am always impressed by folks' language skills, particularly folks who have to talk to an English audience in the English language. Second and third. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really, really good. And Arena, thanks again for being with us at 11 o'clock in Poland. It was a real pleasure. Any questions you have for us?
No, we really appreciate the feedback.
Yeah,
It's
thank you
really
so
very
much.
helpful. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions or points from our judges online?
No, thank you. And by the way, it's 10 p.m. But I actually didn't beat my record because 2 years ago I was participating from Dubai, and I think it was about midnight for the session. So this year is really fine, and it's always a pleasure.
Really good. So be crystal clear. Focus on your issues. Avoid acronyms. Don't ramble.
Yep.
And be crisp and clear in your points, as the gentleman recommended. That was excellent. Why do I care? How is this going to change, and why is it going to be compelling? Okay,
Great.
Lead with your ethical issues.
Yep.
Thanks again.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. You guys are
Yes.
really appreciate it.
Thank you.